January 18th, 2024, 10:42 a.m. The winter light in Seattle makes everything look honest. Steel gray skies, sidewalks washed clean by cold rain, windows that refuse to flatter the faces behind them. My daughter chose a co-working space with floor-to-ceiling glass, espresso on tap, and plant employees forgot to water. I took a seat under a rubber fig and set my old cap on my knee. "Sign here, Dad," Emma said, sliding a blue tab stack of papers across the table. Her nails were immaculate, opaque pink, no chips. She'd always had neat hands, even when she was 5 and made mud pies for her mother. That's the image that still ambushes me. The small palm upturned, asking to be trusted. "What is it?" I asked. "Vendor onboarding and a small compliance update," she said too fast. "For the wedding payments and a transfer so the venue doesn't cancel. The bank needs the signature from the homeowner to verify source of funds." "It's boring. It's nothing." Her colleague Andrew stood behind her, pretending to scroll on his phone. He had those pale accountant's eyelashes and the helpless posture of a man who'd been raised by a louder sibling. When I picked up the pen, he looked up. That's when it happened. His eyes caught mine. Something like pity passed over his face. He moved around the fern, put his hand on the back of my chair, and without looking at Emma, without moving his lips much at all, he whispered, "Run." A ridiculous verb for a 72-year-old with a titanium hip and a grocery list that lives on paper. But the word stuck, featherlight and sharp. I set the pen down, flipped the top page, and pretended to read. My eyes didn't care for the 6-point font. The title cared for me enough. Durable Power of Attorney. Finance. Below it, a page with our address and the words Home Equity Line of Credit. $212,000. Blue tabs for signature. Yellow for initials. Pink for dates. Emma smiled the way people smile when they push a door they think is locked. It's standard. I closed the folder gently, like I just tucked in a sleeping child. "I'll take these home," I said. "My eyes." "Dad," she said. The syllable had all the old music and none of the warmth. "We don't have time." "Then you don't have me," I answered, standing up with the folder under my arm. I put my cap back on. No drama. Just old bones and a decision. I heard Andrew exhale. Soft. The sound paper makes when it's freed from a staple. Outside, the sky had started one of those polite Seattle rains that makes you think you have friends. I walked 2 blocks in it, then 3, past a bakery whose croissants never tasted like anything, past a thrift store where I'd bought my winter coat. Brown corduroy with a tear at the pocket, honest as weather. Somewhere behind me, a door opened and closed, and 2 voices collided. I didn't turn to see which one was chasing me. I went home to my little kitchen, where the clock above the stove has read 12:07 since 2019. I made coffee. I bought the beans on sale, split them into mason jars, and wrote dates on the lids because that's what living alone does to a man. It teaches him to be gentle with what he has. The papers went on the table. My reading glasses went on my nose. The day went on without me for a while. Part 2, my inventory of small things. Before Emma learned to run numbers in corporate fonts, she learned to run down the hallway and launch herself into my arms. Before Power of Attorney, there were pop-up books and my wife, Laura, laughing at the way a paper castle could collapse into itself and still be beautiful. Laura has been gone since October 5th, 2018. Cancer is a bully that never breaks a sweat. After her funeral, I started a list I called my inventory of small things. The list isn't for anyone else. It's for the living. It has entries like this. October 19, 2018. The last lipstick on the coffee mug Revlon, Cherry Blossom. Washed it off and cried like a fool. December 2nd, 2018. Replaced the fridge light bulb. Held on to the old one too long because it was hers. March 14th, 2019. Learned to use the scanner function on the HP OfficeJet 4650. Laura would have teased me. And then farther down, different entries. June 15th, 2020, Emma's tuition payoff. $38,400 wire, university bursar. Happy day. May 7th, 2021, Emma and Mark's condo close. $54,000 down payment loan. No terms, no interest. Love. September 28th, 2022. New heat pump for my house, $11,950. Old man splurge. Laura would approve. February 3rd, 2023. Emma asks for a temporary float, $7,200. Wedding photographer deposit. August 21st, 2023. Emma links my rainy day savings to her wedding master sheet. Asks for just signatures to synchronize payment permissions. I say, bring the papers. I am not poor. I am not rich. I am a retired facilities manager who spent 32 years making other people's buildings warm at 6:00 a.m. and cool at 5. I have one paid-off house appraised at $880,000. His estimate lies by $20,000 either way. A modest IRA. A pension that tastes like white bread and more loyalty than sense. Emma learned early that checks from me don't bounce. When Mark lost his job at the logistics firm last March, I started covering their HOA fees, $510 monthly, while he networked. When Emma's Audi needed a new timing belt, I put $1,740 on my Visa because the mechanic doesn't take Apple Pay. They promised to pay me back. People like promising. It costs nothing on the day. Last week, my BigQ banking app showed a $4,950 wire labeled Triangle Creative Productions. I don't know anyone named Triangle. 2 days later, $15,200 venue hold to Linden Events, LLC. I do know that name. It was written on a barn brochure stuck with a magnet to my fridge over Laura's old recipe for chicken paprikash. I called Emma. Honey, this is more than I agreed for this month. It's better to pay in big chunks, she said. You don't want the band to cancel. The band, I repeated. What happened to your friend's playlist? Dad, she sighed, as if I'd showed up to kindergarten with a briefcase instead of a backpack. You don't understand. Maybe I didn't, but I understood the papers in front of me. The HELOC application had my address, my full legal name, and a scarily accurate estimate of my annual pension. The signature block was expecting a man who ruins his life for love. I ran a fingertip along the margin of the page. Someone had printed a tiny V2 at the bottom. Revised version. On page 7, a clause. Grant of authority includes the power to make gifts to the agent. I felt my molars grind the way Laura used to scold me for. I walked to the sink and rinsed my coffee mug. The water ran hot. I turned it off. Little victories. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. On the way to the notary, I stopped at a plant shop and bought a cactus. It was the kind with soft spines you shouldn't trust. The clerk asked if it was a gift. I said no, I was buying insurance. The notary was a woman with the voice of somebody who has seen too many identities. She read the pages I handed her as if they were a letter from a pen pal who'd grown up mean. Don't sign this, she said, and didn't bother to look up for my reaction. If you've already signed anything like this, revoke it. Today, I haven't, I said. A colleague of my daughter's told me to run. Listen to the colleague, she said. Do you have a lawyer? I have an HP office jet and a pencil, I said. But I can get a lawyer. I got one. Her name was Margaret Cho, not the comedian, but a small woman with a bob haircut and billable hours that could stop a heart. She met me at 4:00 p.m., ate the last of my oatmeal cookies, and put the papers in a neat stack aligned to the corner of my coffee table. This, she said, tapping the durable power of attorney, is a loaded gun aimed at your house. This 1 inch, the HELOC, is the bullet. We made a plan. Step 1, freeze credit. Step 2, revoke any outstanding powers or authorizations. Step 3, send a cease and desist to my bank with a copy on every letterhead in their building. Step 4, quietly collect every receipt, message, and digital breadcrumb. People who intend to steal hate evidence almost as much as they hate a man who has time. I scanned invoices at my kitchen table, the HP chirping like a small, officious bird. Triangle Creative Productions turned out to be Emma's content collective. 3 girls with ring lights and a knack for invoices. The venue hold was real. The band wanted a balance of $5,500 by January 30th. The florist had sent cheerful emails with phrases like ranunculus palette and numbers like $6,820. At 9:18 p.m., Andrew texted me from a number I didn't have. Andrew, coworker, I'm sorry about today. You look surprised. Me, you whispered, run. Andrew, I wanted to yell. I couldn't. Me, how much do you know? Andrew, enough to know you shouldn't sign anything. Emma asked me to find a notary who would look the other way. I refused. We argued. She said, "You're too sentimental to fight." Too sentimental. I looked at the cactus on my windowsill and laughed. It looked back, patient. The wedding was set for June 1st, 2024, at a countryside venue 51 miles north of the city. On May 28th, I paid $2,800 for my suit because a tailor, a man named Victor who smelled like cedar and peppermint, insisted that men of a certain age must let the fabric do the work. On May 30th, Margaret filed a preemptive petition for a temporary restraining order to prevent any further encumbrances on my house and to secure an emergency accounting of funds moved under my name. She called it prudence. I called it Tuesday. June 1st was perfect in the way days are perfect when they have no intention of staying that way. I drove to the venue early. The parking attendants wore vests and confusion. On the gate, under a small clipboard, there was a sheet of paper with my face on it. Do not admit, father of the bride. It's astonishing how fast humiliation can drain the color from a world. The oaks went gray. The white bunting felt like gauze on a wound. I walked to the security table and asked a young man with a stud in his lip to read me the instructions. Under no circumstances. "I'm sorry, sir." I called Emma. She answered on the second ring, breathless. "Dad, please don't make a scene today." "What did I pay for?" I asked, if not to make a scene. "It's my day," she said. "You're making everything difficult." "I revoked the POA," I said evenly. "Did that make your day difficult also?" Silence. "Then Andrew told you." "No," I said, and in that moment, the sarcasm tasted like honesty. "The cactus told me." She hung up. I stood at the gate like a man who wandered into the wrong century. Guests walked past, faces rehearsing sympathy, then choosing to forget it. A woman in mauve whispered, "Is that?" And the man with her said, "Don't look." I didn't argue with the guard. I turned and walked back to my car, sat for a while, and listened to the music muffled by tree bark and distance. Margaret called. "So," she said. "So," I said, "they built a wall and put my photo on it." "Good," Margaret said. "Now we file a motion. Make sure you don't pay a single dollar more." My phone rang again at 3:05 p.m. Not a call. A FaceTime from an unknown number. It was Andrew. He turned the camera to the head table. Emma laughed, fragile and brilliant, beside Mark. He turned it to the vendor's table where a man with a ponytail signed a clipboard titled "Final Balance Due." "Your payments didn't clear," Andrew whispered. "They cut the cake with a plastic knife because the caterer wouldn't release the real ones without the last $8,300. There's a fight in the kitchen." "Turn it off," I said, not because I didn't want to see, but because I wanted to breathe. At 7:12 p.m., 3 calls came in succession. Mark, then Emma again. I didn't answer. At 8:40 p.m., a text. "Emma, Dad, please. They want you to release the venue balance. They won't let us leave until we settle." "Emma, where are you?" "Emma, answer me." I put the phone face down on the table and looked at Laura's photo on the mantel. The one where she's holding a hydrangea and smirking because I can't pronounce hydrangea without sounding like I'm swallowing a marble. "You would have gone to the gate," I told her out loud. "You would have gone to war." "I have a different war." Monday morning, 9:03 a.m., we filed for an emergency accounting and a preliminary injunction. No further instruments recorded against the property. No contact regarding my accounts except through counsel. No disbursements from any account linked to my social security number, without two-factor authentication on a device in my pocket. Margaret printed the motion on heavy paper, the kind that makes staplers swear. She handed me the top copy. I ran a finger over the embossed letterhead. Sometimes you need the wait. By Tuesday, the bank froze the pending HELOC application. Their compliance department called Margaret. "There's an existing POA from April 12th, the woman said. "There was," Margaret said. "It was executed without informed consent and revoked on January 19th. You've been copied on the revocation." "Ah," the woman said. "That explains the attempted draw on May 29th. "Attempted?" Margaret's voice went bright. "Yes," the woman said. $78 for 100 labeled wedding settlement. Our system flagged the mismatch in IP addresses and location. The signature on file did not match the known samples. I think I loved the bank that day a little. Not enough to marry, but enough to send flowers. At home, I assembled folders. I labeled them with a pencil Laura had once sharpened too aggressively. Wedding, HELOC. POA, messages, mortgage. I made soup. It was too salty. I ate it anyway. I slept in Laura's t-shirt because grief is a long-distance sport and I was training for a marathon I didn't want to run. On Thursday, a letter arrived the old-fashioned way. Blue ink in the address. A smudge where the writer had licked the flap. Inside, a single sheet of paper torn from a legal pad, written by a nervous hand. Mr. Halvorson, I'm sorry. I didn't know how else to reach you after Emma blocked my number. I was supposed to be their coordinator. I overheard Emma and Mark practicing what to say if anyone asked about the HELOC. She said, "It's Dad's legacy. He'll pay now or he'll pay later. Either way, it's ours." I resigned because I can't watch someone's daughter do this to them. Please show this to whoever needs to see it. Lydia, Triangle Creative. A confession written in ballpoint at a kitchen table somewhere. It felt like the first fresh breeze after a winter that overstayed its welcome. In August, we started Discovery. Discovery is an ugly word for a beautiful thing. It's the moment paperwork becomes truth. Margaret and her paralegal Ben came to my house with cardboard boxes and a scanner worth more than my first car. We spread out in the living room. The HP hummed. Ben ate all my sesame crackers. He apologized with his mouth full. We requested bank statements for any account where my name appeared in a memo, any registry entry with my address, any email that contained the phrase, "just sign." We asked the venue for their ledger. They sent an invoice with my bank's routing number typed in neatly and a line item for security. Extra hours due to dispute. $1,200 for the privilege of being unwanted. Emma's response arrived on legal letterhead in a voice I did not recognize. All funds were gifts. Any authorizations were made with consent. My father is retaliating because he disapproves of my choices. That last sentence made me stand up and walk into the kitchen, so I didn't shout at the paragraph. I pour coffee. I watch the drip count like seconds. Disapproval is when you frown in an outfit. Retaliation is when you cancel Netflix out of spite. This was theft measured in clean fonts. Ben found a spreadsheet labeled Wedding Master Sheet, Final. In it, venue deposit, $12,000, Dad. Venue balance, $18,300, HELOC. Failed. Dad panicked. Florist, $6,820, Dad. Photographer, $7,200, Dad. Band, $9,800, Dad partial. $5,500. To do, ask Dad. Security, $1,200, Mark's uncle. Coordinators, $4,500, Triangle Emma comp. Emergency cushion, $10,000. Dad won't notice if we do it in 2 parts. Reimburse Andrew, $750 for phone time. Phone time, I said. The world has invented a new denomination. Ben whistled low. This is not defensible. The emails were worse. One from Mark to Emma. If he hesitates, show him the note from Dr. P about stress. Say you're worried he'll have a stroke. He hates the idea of dying before paying for things. You can push the legacy button. From Emma to Mark. He'll sign if I frame it as protecting me if anything happens at the venue. He's scared of liability. He always was. I sat down on the couch and let the paper soften in my hands. They had studied me the way pickpockets study a crowd, not a father. An algorithm. Oldest vulnerabilities. Tapped to produce money on demand. Do you still want to settle? Margaret asked, not unkindly. I want facts on the record, I said. Then we can talk about mercy. She nodded the way surgeons nod before an amputation. November 14th, 2024. The courthouse smelled like cleaning fluid and nerves. I wore the cedar peppermint suit Victor had sold me because stubbornness is a currency some rooms still accept. Emma sat 2 rows ahead with Mark and their attorney, a man who radiated billable confidence. She did not turn around. Andrew sat alone by the wall. He looked like a thought a decent person didn't finish having. The judge, Honorable Mariana Ortiz, has a kind of face that makes liars wish for weather. Margaret went first, because stories belong to the person who can hold their breath the longest. She called me, called Andrew, called Lydia B. Video from her studio apartment where a plant in the corner looked suspiciously like my cactus. The bank's compliance officer testified by phone about attempted draws and IP addresses that didn't match my zip code. And what about the father's absence from the wedding? Opposing counsel asked, as if humiliation were a counterclaim. Margaret didn't blink. Irrelevant to who owes whom money, she said. But if we must, the father's absence resulted from the daughter's unilateral decision to exclude the payer of the event. If anything, it goes to motive and a pattern of control. Then came the emails, the spreadsheet, the legacy button, the emergency cushion called Dad Won't Notice. Opposing counsel tried to make the HELOC sound like a misunderstanding, a family conversation that escalated. He said escalated the way you say a souffle falls. Judge Ortiz flipped through the exhibits like a woman whose time was more valuable than our feelings. Ms. Halvorson, she said at last, do you have anything you wish to say? Emma stood up. She had chosen a navy blazer and remorse painted on with a light hand. I'm sorry, she said. I wanted a beautiful wedding and I panicked. Mark lost his job. Dad has always helped me. I thought he would want to. He's always said Mom would have wanted him to. Your mother is not a party, the judge said not unkindly. Your father is. He is a person with property rights. Something I did not expect happened then. Emma looked at me. For the first time since January, her eyes were the same gray as the winter rain that pretended to be a friend. She opened her mouth as if to say Dad, then closed it. The judge ruled from the bench. Her voice level. Her words fitted tightly into the day so none would fall out later. The temporary injunction became permanent as to my property without my express written consent delivered in person. Emma and Mark were ordered to make restitution of $68,320 within 60 days, plus $12,750 in attorney's fees. The attempted HELOC was declared null ab initio as to my consent. Any outstanding powers of attorney revoked, recorded with the county. The bank would annotate my account. No third-party initiations. Emma was enjoined from contacting me for financial purposes for 1 year. Opposing counsel asked for a payment plan that would not unduly burden the newlyweds. The judge looked over her reading glasses and said, actions have consequences. That's sometimes called adulthood. In the hallway, afterward, Emma waited, arms folded. Mark hovered behind her like a lost balloon. Andrew stood by the water fountain and stared at his shoes. Dad, Emma said. This time the music was there, faint, like a song from a room down the hall. Can we talk? We just did, I said. It's all in the record. That's not, she swallowed. You didn't come to my wedding. You didn't invite me, I said. You posted my face at the gate. You asked me to sign a bullet aimed at the house where your mother's hydrangeas bloom every June. She flinched at Mother. People do when you hand them a mirror. I'm sorry, she said. The way people say, I'm sorry, to get a conversation to move on. We can fix this. No, I said softly. We can settle it. She looked at the floor. Where am I supposed to find $80,000 in 60 days? You're clever, I said. You could invoice the sky and make it pay. Andrew finally stepped forward. Emma, he said. Enough. Mark opened his mouth. Closed it again. It was not his day. I passed Emma and touched her shoulder because I am not made of stone. Stone meant crack. I walked out into the grain and it felt almost like sun. In December, I replaced the clock above the stove. The new one tells the truth. For :30 when it asks for :30. Mercy when it's mercy. I put fresh weather stripping on the back door because drafts teach you vigilance. I moved the cactus to the brighter window and told it out loud. You did good. Margaret sent me a cashier's check on January 10th, restitution minus her fee, plus a copy of the court order in a plastic sleeve she insisted I keep in the front hall drawer. If anyone asks you to sign something, she said, you show them this first. Emma texted me on January 21st. I'm in counseling. I'm sorry. Can we have coffee? I let the message sit like a cup you're not sure is clean. Then I called Andrew. Thank you, I said, for whispering the right verb. I should have shouted, he said. No, I said. Whispers make you choose to listen. That matters. Later that week, I sat at my kitchen table with Laura's recipe for chicken paprikash. I made it exactly as she wrote, the way she taught me on a day when it felt like we would live forever. The sauce came together slowly, thickened by patience and heat, the way good things do. I ate alone. That's not a tragedy. That's a life. Mine. I keep my inventory of small things. Last entry for now. February 2nd, 2025. Replanted the hydrangeas. Pruned the deadwood. When the cuttings fell, they smelled green and honest. Laura would have smiled. She loved it when things that have been cut learn how to bloom again. I'm not naive anymore. People will still say, just sign. There will be more papers with blue tabs and voices that call themselves family. I will use my pen for what it's for. My name when I mean it. My refusal when I must. As for the wedding album, someone dropped off a copy at my porch in a brown paper sleeve without a note. I put it on the shelf between a manual for the HP office jet and Victor's business card. Sometimes I take it down, not to look at faces, but to weigh it in my hands. Printing has heft. So does truth. There is a photograph of a cake cut with a dull plastic blade and a bride who looks as if she's just remembered a different childhood. I put the album back gently and lock my front door, not against love, but against the version of it that arrives with forms. The title of this story writes itself. So does the last line. She said, sign here. A man with pale eyelashes whispered, run. I did, and for once in my life, I arrived exactly where I needed to be, in front of Judge, with my name still mine.